There you go, rant over.
Okay, so we'll get to another
I
submission.
feel like I say the same thing every 10 minutes, and I do actually, but it's good everyone has that introduction. So you have 10 minutes. You may use it as you wish. If you want to give us time at the end for questions, you may do so. Thank you, Angela.
Kia ora tātou, thank you so much for the welcome. Ko Angela McLeod aho. I thank you very much for accommodating us today. I just wanted to quickly add that we support the Cancer Society's oral submission and given earlier, and also the ASH research that you've most likely got in your papers. In addition to our written submission, I would also like to say that we would like to see the government uphold their, and as a state party, our obligation to the World Health Organisation's Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, particularly around Article 5.3, which requires governments to interact with tobacco companies only as required for regulatory purposes, and states that all interactions must be documented and transparent, and an obligation that's also acknowledged on the Ministry of Health website. It's obvious to us because the evidence and the language being used suggests that the tobacco industry have been quite successful in lobbying the government, and we need to see transparency around that. I'd also like to point out too that the impact on local government and their regulations should not be underestimated. How will this legislation impact them? Do they have the resources, both human and financial, to carry out any control imposed on them by this legislation? We'd also like to see kindness to those who vape because they have a nicotine dependence. Let's not call them addicts. Let's see what it is. If they've moved from cigarettes to vaping, how will this legislation support them? How will this legislation ensure there's a vaping cessation program in place for them? And will the language change ensure they're not labelled addicts? I mean, has anyone died from vaping in New Zealand? We don't want this to happen, of course. But will punishing the users work instead of actually punishing the pushers and the sellers? And why are we not having the same conversations about alcohol? Smoking kills 2 in every 3 users, we know that. However, and I know it's not the mandate of this committee at this stage talking about this legislation to think about alcohol, but there needs to be some equity of discussion around addiction.
Yeah, can I just jump in there, Angela, very quickly? You made an assertion earlier that this government has been lobbied and successfully lobbied by tobacco companies, and you can't really make those sort of assertions, and the minister has quite clearly stated in the House several times that isn't the case. Also, 2 out of 3 users of alcohol, did you say they die?
No, smoking.
Smoking, 2 out of 3. Okay, cool. Good, thank you.
So yes, we'd like to see some equity of discussion around addictions. The regulation and punishment of suppliers, I mean, we heard from earlier too, is how will the impact of the black market, see, it hasn't worked in Australia and there's been an increase in the black market, so how will this legislation deal with that? Is there an adverse effect on women, and what will the government be doing about that, because it's an obligation under CEDAW after all. Am I able to answer the statement around I just wanted to be clear around my statement earlier was that the language being used by both the government and the tobacco lobby is the same. So that, I guess, is where many members of the public are making that assertion, Chair.
Noted. Thank you, Angela.
So, how does it feel to have friend of the show and guest host of It's on the Ballot Women's Suffrage Day special, Angela McLeod from good old Upper Hutt?
You know, Angela's my whanaunga, my cousin.
Okay.
Well, not directly, but her mum is the partner of my Uncle Peter O'Flaherty there in Upper Hutt. And I've known Angela, obviously, for a very long time. I thought that part was an embarrassment. Sam Uppendale to interrupt a submitter and attempt to correct the record of the government.
Also, the submitter
I haven't been lobbied.
Former parliamentary EA.
Oh yeah, I mean Angela knows her stuff. She's just messaged me. I sent her a screenshot of the thing we've just been watching. You know, the interesting thing is that she knows her stuff. Number 2, though, she wasn't necessarily being combative. She was saying, she was making a really important point that, you know what, we shouldn't label the addicted as an example, because, you know, no one thankfully has yet died of vaping of an illness here in New Zealand. Maybe that's because it hasn't been categorised appropriately, or we haven't seen a coronial inquiry so far in that a death was questionable or referred to the coroner by somebody. But anyway, to me. So, you know, God, Sam, well, the select committee process isn't designed, brother, for you to be asking Patsy questions like you get a Patsy question to asking question time to the old light bulb moment. It's just absolutely ridiculous.
And I'll be honest, my only big experience is dealing with the Justice Select Committee in more recent times, and I can tell you right now, they've never asked me Patsy questions.
My God, he's so
or questions to sit there and try to rip you a new one that could backfire.
all I gotta say is that he seemed really triggered by the idea of being lobbied.
Yeah.
That's when he jumped in and interrupted her.
Oh, well, let's see what questions get asked for, Ange.
So, kia ora, I have finished. I'm open for questions.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for your submission there. Huhana Linden has her hand up. Huhana.
Kia ora, Angela, and thank you very much to the network for providing your submission today. But also recognise, you represent a group of mothers and carers for our mokopuna and our future. Now, thinking about, you've got your core purpose in terms of business and advancing a wahine voice in that space. Can you provide for us some guidance? And I've already heard, the fact that you want to see the link between alcohol and tobacco in these matters. And the Cancer Society spoke to that too in terms of the placement of this product. Can you give us some advice on some of these things? Because while this is for a small piece of legislation, there are broader discussions that potentially, as the Health Select Committee, we could examine.
In fact, that question is a very good question, which I could attempt to answer from a personal point of view. I wouldn't be able to represent the BPW voice on that because it is not been discussed in that way, in that context. However, it is an issue. And I work in other, as a lot of us wahine do, I work in a lot of other places apart from just being one of the voices at BPW. So I am a former city councillor. I've been, and I do know the issues that the dairy group spoke of just before. Absolutely, we need to think about that. We actually need, that's why we mentioned the equity of addiction and all of them having some place. I think that there is not enough work done on that intersectionality between alcohol and smoking and food. The whole alcohol work around having it available in supermarkets at different places, and then you've got like the vaping, and it's just, it'd be a strong suggestion from me that at some stage in the future, if the Select Committee could do some work around that, that would be really helpful.
Thank you.
So, how does it...
I don't know what happened to Matt. Where'd he go?
His camera's turned off, but he's still in there.
I can't see him.
No, I'm still here.
He's still there.
Still here.
Matt, where'd you go?
Just gone off.
Ah, there he is.
We've got more treats.
Shiba Inu.
Hello, Hana-chan. This is the world.
Hana-chan. Konnichiwa.
So she's got her operation thing. I'm just going to put it down on the ground.
Aw.
You go, darling. Sorry.
That's all right.
I had to prioritise. I heard some squealing.
Oh, well, I mean, we've now seen the good old fun part there. So, yes, Angela has been asked more questions and from Huhana Linden. And basically, she mentioned not just her own role of her submission, but also the fact that she's a former councillor. So it is definitely, she has mentioned a fair bit in there.
Angela, in her role with BPW Business and Professional Women International, she's been with that organisation for many years. She wasn't quite successful at the last Upper City elections when she attempted to take old Wayne Guppy on. He's been there, I think, about the same length of time as Rex Curtin was when he was mayor, or thereabouts. Her husband, Mac, owns a motorbike shop just over the road from the railway station there. So she's got a really rounded out sort of background, and so the things that she says, I haven't done anything. Oh, so that was Andrew just messaging me as well. The things she says comes from a very different perspective than say your Sam Upendale from Central Consulting Casting.
Yes. No,
I'm sorry. The other reason I heard squealing is it's raining badly up here in Auckland, and so my poor little puppy who's just had her operation is in need of attention because I've been snoring the roof off for the last 4 hours.
Do we want to comment on this?
Well, the other question that could come out of there is what's going to stop people making their own vape products?
Yeah, so when we're talking about fruity vape products, we're talking about like disposable fruity vape flavors. Again, I'm not a smoker, so I don't know all the lingo, but we're talking about that stuff like disposable fruity flavored vapes for kids. Kids getting their hands on them. If you're over 25 or over the age 18, smoke away. I don't care.
Yeah.
We're entering a very dangerous period with this kaupapa. We're entering a period where we don't know necessarily how it's going to impact children. The evidence tells us it's going to be bad. So what we should be doing is creating a safety blanket to protect both our tamariki and mokopuna. And at the most appropriate time into the future, when things might need to be amended or changed, then let's talk about, you start these things with trying to get everything that you possibly can think of in, and then be prepared to amend and change legislation as you go. What we're starting here with is we started with world-class smoking legislation that many other nations around the world have either adopted or amended or taken lessons learned from us. Yeah. And we've decided to completely unpack that school of thought because of what? The risk of wanting to... Yeah, it's a terrible thing to think that in a country such as ours, very well known over many, many years and across many political colours, of tried and tested really good social public health policy, that now we've gone down this path. I mean, what next? The American... I mean,
we might have seatbelts removed from cars at the rate we're going.
Well, and this is for those those narratives. I mean, I simply cannot still believe that we spend hundreds of millions of dollars on potholes, but there we are. Yeah. One would have thought that why would you continually driving down the same stretch of road and putting your car over a pothole that you know is going to break it? What point do you think can possibly arrive by that? What, so you can just get angry because you're not tuning into the 6 o'clock news anymore? Or changing speed limits around schools and all this other sort of thing. I mean, we are talking about what I would otherwise call retail politics, where somehow what we're doing is responding to a very small minority of people, but using now things such as social media and other platforms to say that it's a bigger problem than it really is. I mean, potholes, the one big thing that's going to bring our country unpacked? No, it's not. But tolling the Manawatu Gorge sure is bloody well helpful.
That could cost National the seat of Wairarapa.
Well, actually, the stuff that they're doing with Dunedin Hospital will probably cost them the seats potentially of Invercargill and Rangitata. The implosion of the industry down there in Timaru, all of these different things. I mean, people forget that Rangatike came very close to changing from National to Labour at the last of the 2020 election, I think it was.
Rangatike came close. I wouldn't have thought that because that's very, very deep blue.
It was deep blue, but I think Soraya Picky-Mason came close to winning on the night, but didn't quite get it across the line on the specials or whatever it might be.
Oh, okay.
So the reality is that we are dealing with the worst of retail politics, and one of the best operators of retail politics is the Minister for Racing, Winston Peters.
Yeah, I mean, I am a libertarian socialist, so part of the reason why I said smoke away is I'm not. Basically, I'm saying, look, it's you have bodily autonomy as long as you're paying taxes, as long as tax money is going to the healthcare system. I don't have an issue.